所人东家解就是我的每多努北简单的我的东巴人间不尊尊就进大西的呀的那的嘞哟。The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Gam Niratayami. Jadan Zaji Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jasu Jin Dagi Chinye Jibe Sonam Jin Rola Benji Sanye Rubarju. Jadan Zaji Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jasu Jin Dagi Chinye Jibe Sonam Jin Rola Benji Sanye Rubarju. Jadan Zaji Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jasu Nagi Chinye Jibe Sunam Ji Drola Benji Sanje Rubarju.
What the Lari Chibote Lari Saji, Talaji Tawashin, then the Luchidation Bani, then the Luchidation Bajada, Taidina Nibble and Vishu, Nibble Jetta Levitu, Nibble Jetta Levitu, the La, Chibuchunga Tomu Lajis of Lojan, Chuda, Dinda Tomu Lajis, Lojan Vitu, Chibi Lajis of Lojan Vitu, Sole, Chibuchunga Lajis of Lojan Vitu. Tella Jide Kaza Rowan do some Kaza
Jidin Shemba
Jidin Shema Lojibata Jidin Shema di Totemani Jidin Shema di Totematala John to the Lendenima that John to the La Josun to 네 저준주 라자르바
Tsu.
저준주 라자
Lesso.
지금은 안가도 라자가 들려도 말이야
Lesso.
라자들라 도안이 집 라자다
Lesso.
맹안을 라자니지
Lesso.
다 되니는 다 맹안을 좀 라자 말이야
Lesso.
맹안을 좀 라자들라 안에 토모 이바니르바 토모 많이 바니지 안에 토모 많이 받으려다
That's so. So again, we are looking at Lama Tsong-kha-pa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And this text, if we look at its outline format, begins with how to rely upon the teacher that is the root of the path, and then a second topic of how students train their minds after having relied upon their teacher. That second topic has two categories: an exhortation to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity, and then the point of how to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. Under the major heading, how to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity, we find three major headings: training the mind in the stage of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, training the mind in the stage of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and training the mind in the stage of the path for beings of great capacity. The first heading, training the mind in the stage of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, has three headings under it: the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, the measure of the attitude of a person of small capacity, and then dispelling any misconceptions related to a person of small capacity. So the first category, actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, has two categories: developing a state of mind, developing a state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives, and then relying on a means or a method of achieving happiness in one's next life. So that last heading, relying on a method or a means for achieving happiness in one's next life, begins with two topics, or has two topics under it. First, refuge, and then second, karma and its results. The refuge section has 4 points: causes of going for refuge, based on that, the objects to which you go for refuge to, how to go for refuge, and then the advices or precepts related to refuge. And in the advices or precepts related to refuge section, it's explained in two specific ways. First, it's explained relating it to the compendium of determinations, and then it's explained according to the oral tradition. So in the oral tradition, if we look under the general and specific precepts, we're beginning in the general precepts section, or the general advices section. So we're going to begin, I'll tell you the page. Page 196, the Dru Gutsogore.
What the Mengalan Jew Laja Jeseni Les Roa, the Mengalan Jew Laja, what did Tinsar hold the Roa? Mengalan Jew Laja Roa. Tomoto Tumuma Nije.
So Rinpoche said we've gone over the general and the common.
Tomoto Tumuma Nije, that Tumungla River. Tumungla del Troiba. Tumungla del Truro.
Okay, yes.
Conjus Chabatan, then just to Jambian and the Jasura. The Saji.
Lesser.
Cardin just to Jambi, you thought to Chabala Zawa, the Jay Pujambi or that Saji.
Lesser.
He just to jump into Ajan, Chundalam Gobas, Tesarwa. That Shawak Anshiba Gubachi Yavana, Conjus on La Chune, so on the Jitin Bitajan Pumas.
Lesser.
Or Tesarwa. That pension in Yinas Chenrezig Josu. Josu Roa Shawala Shawaji, what the Catulid Marba? Conjus Tana Jengi Shiran, Suki Shamaton, Turu, or Tugana, Nabat the Ledreba, Nabat the Roa.
Pain. Less so. Okay, so.
What did you do?
Then Drew Lagwe
Or the
Sache.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we go to the general precept section, if we read through and look where we've come to, we find first, by recalling the distinctions and the good qualities of the three jewels, go for refuge again and again. So we've gone over that section. By recalling the great kindness of the three jewels, strive to worship them constantly and offer the first portion of your food and drink. We've finished that section. Establish other living beings in this practice by considering them with compassion. So we've gone through that the last class. Whatever activity you engage in, whatever your purpose, make offerings and supplications to the three jewels, forsaking any other worldly methods. So we've gone through that. After you have understood the benefits, go for refuge 3 times in the day and 3 times at night. So number 5 is where we're dealing with right now, the benefits of going for refuge. And then number 6 is what is to come. And number 6 is maintain your refuge and do not forsake the 3 jewels, even in jest or if it costs you a life. Decent. Less so.
Geshe Lharampa mengal viola jakadu marbe kazonga zo mengal viola jakadu dimba doali jo geshe ni de
okay
geshe tambu de marbe sono jachu to basa marbe geshe tambu de jignan tambu de sono jachu to basa konjo sono jazu rogina sono jachu to gres ane kaza sono jachu to gres ane ndo marvando
lessa
on sonjiye de samaje chujiye de samaje
lessa
geniye de samaje fabrique de samaje samaje bala teji na ba me ba samaje chebam be nada je de jo ju yuwa wa den do de ren wa ane kaza tangcha yi zamar be tangcha
lessa
wa de je tene pashi de ba 자수 전화 주요 나 동선대 안 해도 좀 자수 좀 주의돼 표지죠 칼라뉴스 와데 로니드 장고도와 로니드 전화 자주부터 봐 되는 예바도 가와나 주도 가와도 봐도 말이야 가와도 주도 가와도 봐스 안에 고조선을 자주도 제기나 안에 소술 가부 용거래 가와디 앞에 넣어서 가와도 봐서야 돼 가부 용거래 주도 가와서야 돼 가와 앞에 뭐 있어 말이야 ane tensangu tuso tabate ane himanga tusore ane kasagura rungna sime sana tuyamogo guna julam chi tuso yinza ane shingi tola tenpate mengares ane susungun nubati shira meba yinaya konshu sonla jazun riyugune ane shaa chabada choban bibala suwa tosi shegi yina ane jibi chungu lang, ringi lang, jibi chimbi lang la suwa tusunga ya peyongres what is on the marbe go to chudu go to bas
the longa gane
no the marbe oh chong ba chong go no ji
oh the sheen ale sheen dan chu okay
what is it
less so okay decent so we're going to begin actually on page 202 is where we're going to move forward to because Rinpoche said we went over those sections, so we're going to begin with that 5th point, which is after you have understood the benefits, go for refuge 3 times in the day and 3 times at night. And then it says the benefits of going for refuge are explained first according to the compendium of determinations, and then according to the oral tradition or the personal instructions. So we begin with the compendium of determination, and there are 2 sets, 2 separate sets of 4, and it begins with that you will the first benefit of going for refuge in the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, is that you will obtain a vast amount of merit. So then we find the quote that from a Tantra text called the Immortal Drumbeat Dharani, where it says the Buddha is conceivable. So in Rinpoche inserted here, the Bhagavan Buddha's excellent qualities are inconceivable. The sublime teachings' excellent qualities are also inconceivable. The noble community or the Sangha's excellent qualities are inconceivable. For those having faith in the inconceivable, the fruition is also inconceivable. So it shows about the vast store of merit, the fruit, the result of going for refuge to the objects which have so much power, or excellent qualities, so they're inconceivable. The next point we find from Aryashura's Compendium of the Perfections. It's a Prajnaparamita text. It says, if the merit of going for refuge took form, even those 3 realms would be too small to contain it. Cupfuls of water can... handfuls of water cannot measure the great ocean, the storehouse of water. So you can't measure it in handfuls. So that's the second quote that we find. And then we find another quote later on that speaks of, we find another quote that speaks to the inconceivable nature of the three jewels. It says, just as the height and breadth of the space have no limit, and the of space have no limit, the trees and the water, there is no limit to the fruition of helping or harming you. So the trees, water, it's not in the English here, but we find it in the Tibetan. I have to go back to give it exactly literally, but it speaks of the limitless trees and waters, just like the space and the tree and water are limitless, just as is the fruit, there is no limit to the fruition of helping or harming you. So that quote also just shows the vast amount of merit that one can obtain, because there's no limit to the fruition of helping in that case. So we find that the limitless or vast merit that's created in that quote. So we're able to, the fruition here, we're able to engage in all of the pathways which lead to the higher realms, the pathways which lead to liberation, those pathways which lead to complete Buddhahood. So these are the fruitions that come about throughout by going for refuge as a basis. The next is you obtain, there are 2 points, number 3 and 4. First, you obtain concentration, and then lastly, you obtain purity. And it says you will be liberated through training in concentration and wisdom. So the next deals with you, so we get into the second set of 4. So the second set of 4 begins with you will have great protection. So you will have be protected. So this will be explained later. So we'll pass by that. You will reduce, extinguish, and totally annihilate all obscurations derived from incorrect belief. So you reduce and clear away a bad karma accumulated on account of your believing in bad teachers, teachings, and friends and upholding them as refuges. So in the past we have accumulated a large amount of misdeeds in relation to wrong teachers, wrong friends, and wrong teachings. So teachers, teachings, and friends. So we've been influenced and created misdeeds because we've sought them as our refuge. By going for refuge to the 3 jewels, we find out what the correct type of teacher is, what the correct type of teaching is, what a correct type of friend is. And then we're able to purify, purify the negativities previously accumulated through believing in or seeking refuge in these bad teachers' teachings and friends. So by knowing the difference, it's like being able to recognize that a rope is a rope and it's not a snake, and we then don't accumulate any more negativities because we know the difference between good and bad friends, teachings, and teachers. So this is what Geshe Rinpoche states. So the third is, you are counted among excellent persons who genuinely accomplish the sublime. And then it says you are included among excellent persons. So you become most excellent persons. I've seen it translated also as holy, counted among holy beings or persons. But excellent is the more literal, I believe, in this case. The best, most excellent kind of person. Best person.
Da Rawan Jowa Dan, Da Tumba the Tamba Shuba Dan, Tembala Gayu, Tembala Gayu, Hanaji, Hidon Kawan Joa, Chibatamba Tujin, Tembala Suba, Jeba Wosa, Jandu Dueva Ina, Jibatro Jiba, Jandu Dueva Ina, and Saji Gabi Ungre, and Gani Gabi Ungre. Hatu sukan gabin gures, hatu sukan gabin gures, hatu sukan les gabin gures na, hatu ko chawdo yaba cheba yin sudan, an ko diba ta ne, se shama ta ne ko hal chene nga su jobu cha yung gures ne, hatu gabi che gures, what the marbe?
The Yanjer son Kandre Trobocha. The gem of the Trobocha, the Hla. The Shera Gagdu.
John Jenkins, John Jenkins, Lasu Gabu, Sanji Gabu, Lasu Garjin Gabu, Lasu Santan Wars, could John Abijazan, Debatan, National Jigmari, Salic,
less than trouble. Lesser.
What the government? Yeah.
Okay. So, number 4. You delight and receive the approval of your teachers and religious companions and of the deities who take joy in the teaching. So you please the Buddha when you go for refuge. You please the Sangha, those aspiring to virtue. You please the gods. So it says, you please your teachers and religious companions. How are the deities delighted? They sing praises of such people, joyfully thinking, this person named such and such who, like us, has gone for refuge will die and be reborn here. Because he or she has gone for refuge and has become stable in it, he or she will be our companion. So here, the gods are thinking that because this person is going for refuge, he or she is clearing away their misdeeds. And as a result of clearing away their misdeeds, they won't be born into the lower realms of cyclic existence, and then will become our friends later in their future lives. So they sing the praises of their refuge. They sing praises of such people, joyfully thinking, this person named such and such who, like us, has gone for refuge will die and be reborn here, because he or she has gone for refuge, has become stable in it, he or she will be our companion. So the gods look to the future friendship and sing the praises of him or her because of the recognition of the purification of misdeeds and what that will lead him or her to.
Ulma, no said that Penjitre, and then Laja de la Mengalan Ju, Laja de la Giro, Jit the Muller, Nabasanji, but Subat and Tagaji, the Musa Jit Tadre.
Okay.
Loba Gabazo, Toju, Tes Doju, and then Laja down, Otosukalo. 부자간에 요아래 간준 요아래 댄준 요아래 소데 도주 먹어요아래
The Lotugaba.
로투가바
Okay, cheap. Okay. So then, when we so that number 4 concludes the 2 sets of 4 according to Sangha's compendium of determination. So then we get into the personal instructions section. And Jayan Sheba breaks this section of the oral tradition or personal instructions into 2 categories: the enumeration of the numbers of the 8 benefits, and then secondly, the dispelling any misconceptions related to it. So Jamin Sheba breaks it into 2 categories, and it begins with the benefits as they appear in the personal instructions.
맹아는 Tsong-kha-pa 라르기 자와다 안에 와데 냥 참만도와 시부도와 어떤 장장집이 당고 말다 엘라바도 장
So this section on the 8 benefits, where we find in the oral tradition or personal instructions, all of the other it's easy in all the other Lamrim texts we find it in there, but Jayan Sheba doesn't comment very much in this section on it because it's an easy section, so he seems to only comment on the really difficult points. So there's very limited information in Jayan Sheba's text in this, but in all the other texts it's full of information.
다 로바 가봐서 어떤 날에 대지 도바여서 그걸로 그 도주지.
But in the part where there's dispelling misconceptions, Jamin Sheba, related to this, Jamin Sheba does get into information and using analysis and reasoning to dispel misconceptions related to these topics.
다 같은 자지 배우던 무엇도 들 전에 가서 그래. 그중에서 저도 편지들 편지 지금은 아무도 좋아서나 안에 명함을 편지les 무엇이야 지들에 다 아무도 나봐 상지바 추바스 그중에서 저도 저기나 안 넘버 til 추는 그래 넘버에 그래 나봐 상지바 추바스 나봐 상지바 추세야지 매지 저쪽이 동바쇼는 그거 말했을 때 소소산 단에 저도 레소나 넘버에 그래 나봐 상지바 추는 그래 남이 til 그래 나봐 상지바 추바네 신나라 요새 뭐든 하나 셔바다 나비 셔바데 근데 개바서 그 뭐송사도스 셔바다 나비 셔바 안에 뭐송사도데 네 조지 바네 아디샤다 신드바 니버되게 저르기 지도스 저르도 요소는 남바래 저르 매바 그걸로 안에 다시를 봐서 그래 셔바 이 건조소가 저서 뭐들고네 지대를 하신다래 저주로데 다시바드는 자고 이제 조단 신드바다 조제 아디샤다 신드바 공개바 쳐버려 개바 쳐버려 안에 도단카 참말게 비지 산상바 이제 산상바 조제데 안에 오마탄주어로 조제도 오마탄주어지 신드바다 산상바 산상바 공개네 파신 부자당 한 부자 먹어서래.
Okay.
한 부자. 파신 부자는 레시니부 나로래. 아니 신도발 가바데 요다. 레시니부 산상부 그 가도들 신도바데 가요. 저름지.
Okay.
하게 부자 나로래 신도부 너무 못 장. 신도부 나를 뺏겨봐 있어.
Okay. So then when we begin this first section, Jayan Sheba uses as the section of enumeration, or the benefits numbered. So it begins with, so it says, as explained in the personal instructions, the benefits of going for refuge are 8 in number. First, you are included among Buddhists. So you become a Buddhist. And it doesn't matter if you have gone and gotten a refuge vow or not. It's whether or not you've within one individual's continuum, he or she is going for refuge. So you don't need to have a refuge vow to be a Buddhist. You can, if you're going for refuge, then this makes you a Buddhist. if an individual in his or her continuum is going for refuge, then this makes him or her a Buddhist. So it says, in general, there are a number of ways to distinguish Buddhists from non-Buddhists. So previously we went over many different points of the difference between Buddhist and non-Buddhist. And it says here, though, however, since it is widely acknowledged that the elder and Santipa distinguish them according to the refuges they seek, you should count as Buddhists those who obtained and not forsaken their refuge. So here, it's speaking, the elder is referring to Lord Atisha, and Santipa is a great scholar in the Sutra and Tantra tradition. He was a holder, though, of the mind-only school view, and Lord Atisha is a holder of the Madhyamika Prasangika view, if we're looking at the two people. But Santipa we find in Lama Tsong-kha-pa's Essence of Eloquence text that he actually negates the mind-only school view of Santipa in that text. But Santipa wrote many texts on the Prajnaparamita and Tantra, and we find Santipa quoted a great amount of times in tantric texts. So this is a brief history of who Santipa is. He was a holder of the mind-only school view, wrote many books on the perfection of wisdom in Tantra, negated by Lama Tsong-kha-pa in the Essence of Eloquence, and quoted very frequently in tantric texts, and a great scholar in the tantric tradition. Decent.
Shindaba Bölpe varis, Shindaba Bölpe ne, and the Konsuke Majabaji, Pentuka Majumaris. And then George Bölpe and Pentu which of Chumaris.
Ale, Santipa Pula Pesum Pentu Chemyomare.
Kishik Major, Kimajina, do it about Lotsun, they were sheep look. Losumana, sheep, God, sheep.
Oh, drop will do it.
Do Kyoba, so Sijin Tugas.
Oh, okay. Let's say Pentoimari. Okay. So he, Santipa, went to Tibet in the same way that Lord Atisha went to Tibet. But Lord Atisha was very, very beneficial in Tibet, whereas Santipa wasn't able to be very beneficial when he went to Tibet. He didn't understand the language and ended up watching animals, herding sheep, being a sheep herdsman, because he wasn't able to be as beneficial, not being able to discuss things and not know the language.
Jirmachi what the Shabata Nabaki Chabata with the Jujita, Shidabak Sumba Najins, Shidab Sumba Najin, and Karsa Sumba Najin, and Karsa Tena, Toma Sanjeva Suba Kunju Sumba Hitabane, Tumbala Suban Zimba, Guijis, Mena. Goa Ganshi Jan Sanjiba Musubos, and what the number Sanjibal Tomanine, Kojus only each about Google is, the Mena, Goa Kadruba in a Nami Goregmares, what the Sunday is at where.
So, thus, to be initially included among Buddhists, you must uphold the three jewels as your teacher and so forth from the depths of your heart. Without this, you are not included among Buddhists, no matter what virtue you have cultivated. So, one needs to have the faith and conviction in the three jewels in order to be considered a Buddhist. Without this, one is not included among Buddhists. So Geshe Rinpoche states that Atisha and Santipa assert that one is a Buddhist if he or she has achieved refuge, achieved the state of refuge, or obtained refuge, and then not lost it, not forsaken the refuge. So those are the two qualifications to make one a Buddhist according to Lord Atisha and Santipa.
What? Ta number Sanjiva Subas or the Tambaje, Ta Niba Domba Tanji tend to Joannes, and the John the Domba Tanji tend to Jovares, Sotago Dombatan, Jansen Dombatan, Hadun Tamalo, John Yuan Jigare, 저도 맨 지금 말이스 동바 탄지 텐도 좋아네 동바 탄지 텐도 좋아는 전리레스 전리 베지 르베 이니게 되바인도 르베 이니게 저 자와당 저랑데 요로
란제
저선 좋아나는 전바양 다바 라마 탄지라 전바양 동바양 다바 라마 탄지라 kurchuba yinosa domba yanta balamba nala tamu jubi kurchuba yinsa ta kante domba tubala te chandu jugu res domba tubala tambu te chandu jushe bala tene ane domba jugu res yanta balamba tanjila kurchuba yinosa wata sonde she tanza chandu dunchuba le jan genye sonla chandu dunchuba su tatu su son yin ma she
Japa.
Padin Dharma, what is it? Chandu Dunjuba, Padin Dharma, Kundu, yeah. Chandu Dunjuba les Jang, Kenyasunla Jodua, Kenyasunla, Sanji Kunju, Chukunju, Kenyan Kunju, Sombotele, Genyak Meta, Genyak Meta, Genyasunla Josu, Goa Tabaljane, Tel Tunya Buyosan, Genyasumba Indo, Genyasunla Jodua. Then don't tell is Naginius on the Johnson Road, John de Tasutaba redo the Rigi, Sutaba Rigi is all is, yet the Junior Bases, Sutaba redo in the Regina, Sajus Tajigi, Sawa in Jerota, Doji Tawa, she is on the John Drew, Yandi, Samba Temba. Nyande Samba Temba Sheji Tele Domba Jawala Gonsos, Jermachi. Chandu te, Domba Gasawa in Swate, Chandu te, Chandu Yovaina, and Nyande Samba Temba Sheris. Nyande Samba Sana, Rana Sejumare, Nandu Samba Temba Sheris, Chandu, Nandu Samba Temba Sheba Yusunta, and what they Chuching saw in Swado, Telcomores, Germans, could Telangam. Chuchilla and a Nanjuku Chuchin down, Lemage Chuchin down, and a Gasa Chuchin soon. Nanjuku Chuchin, Lemage Chuchin, Jijo Chuchins, Jijo Chuchin soon. But never June, Susatabi Domalanka Yoruba. Never joined the Society of Dobalangate, Nanjuk Tuji, Nanjuk Sambi on the Chinas. Tuji ina, Pishing Nanjuk Tuji Chelsea Mendua. Jijo Tuji Sana, Jijo Sana Kushina Lana, and then Kudumba the land Trabajina, and Okusul Tana. Trabamajina, Suyak and Yagayobaina, Kotelishina, Trabajin Domalanga Euro. Tenjijo Gichon, Nanu Sambaka Maru.
Yanjusuna?
Jijo's and scared. Other people could Sogis, Sorojena, no could Trabajin, Pentu Yobaina, and the Trabajin of the Gato.
Okay.
Tenjijo
fear. Okay.
Sujin one Mares.
Less so. Then it?
Tale Meg Suji Trabanam Tanjiganata, Shiraka, Hijibur Samadata, Nanu Samba Memaje. Najira Kasugro, Leva Member. Trabajin Shiran Hijibu, Zebudu Sandana, what the San Tangan, Tane, Dobalanga Juro, Lemeg Tutin, Nijo Tutin Mares.
Okay.
Tuti, the Yenang and do some Tutin Chagres.
Lesser.
There is no Jeremachege, John Dute, Dombaga in Sayate, Nanu Samba Temba Sheba in Sultan, and Tawa in Sombares, Telagons.
Lesser.
What the inside is somebody.
Rimchi, Jantra Lana, the Domakanga Ladwe.
Jantra Yuba in that Domajenda Lana, the way in the Chigurota.
The name Jantra Lana?
Jantra Lasuna, Doma.
Okay. So the next section, so the first section is you become a Buddhist. You're included among Buddhists. The next section, you become worthy to uphold all vows. So speaking of the vows, the individual liberation vows, we can enumerate 7 or 8. the Bodhisattva vows or the tantric vows. So these are the vows of discipline that are being spoken of here. And it says, those who go for refuge enter the door leading to the taking of all vows. So here it's saying that the refuge is the entrance into, or the cause of, all of the other vows. So that's the point that's made in, this is by Basu Bandhu, which is a commentary on his own work, The Treasury of Knowledge. So he wrote a commentary on his own work. So it's the auto-commentary. It says also Chandrakirti's 70 verses on refuge state. So Chandrakirti's over there on the wall among the Indian pandits' pictures. So that's it. We see the image on the pandits' pictures over there. And this is his 70 verses on refuge. And it says, "O lay practitioners." So here, lay practitioners are referring to the lay householder refuge. So there's a householder refuge vow. So it says, "O lay practitioners." So this word practitioner is an upholder of the lay person refuge vow. It says, "Going for refuge to the 3 jewels is the basis for the 8 vows." So the basis among the individual liberation vows. So this is enumerated by 8. It can be enumerated by 7, but this is speaking about the individual liberation vows. The intended meaning of these passages is that if you make your aspiration for nirvana firm by going for refuge, and let me try that again. The intended meaning of these passages is that you make your aspiration for nirvana firm by going for refuge, and that your vows arise from this. So all the other vows are caused by a refuge vow. And if we look at this point here, it says to make your aspiration for nirvana. If one wishes to achieve to achieve nirvana, then it's necessary to achieve renunciation, a desire to definitely emerge from cyclic existence. And if we look at ethics, we look at the divisions of ethical behavior. We find ethics can be divided into 3 categories: renunciation ethics, ethics out of fear, and ethics for reputation. So if we look at these 3 categories of ethics, the only real category is the ethics of renunciation that is actually ethics. Because if one if we look at renunciation ethics, this is ethical behavior inspired by a desire to definitely emerge from samsara, inspired by renunciation. The second kind, out of fear, is if you feel like because you are in the monastery, you'll get in trouble. If you do something wrong, so you're engaging in some kind of ethics so that you don't get into trouble, this isn't a real ethic. And then the third kind of ethics, an ethics so that you'll look good, is if you think, oh, if I become ordained, I will look very beautiful, I will be respected, etc. So this is not ethics. So this is ethics for the sake of looking good or for the sake of reputation. So this ethics of renunciation is the true ethics. So if it is ethics, it's necessarily the ethics of renunciation. So this word ethics we're using in this context, in the Buddhist context, it has a really specific meaning, and it necessarily is referring to that there's renunciation inspiring it. And if we look at the renunciation and how it is brought about, and how the vows are brought about, we see that at the root behind all of it, the cause of all of it, is going for refuge. So this is why they link, Lama Tsong-kha-pa links the firming of the aspiration for nirvana by going for refuge, or the firming up the pathway to nirvana, almost, because going for refuge becomes the root of all of it.
다 로베에 대유의 사제에서 노알을 개발이요로 로베에 대유고 노안도 자온 것들에 내가 봐주 수지 좀 어디서 나서 수대 수지이나 내주 수지 차스
Sutta
레벨에 가서
individual Sutta okay Sutta Suchi
수대 수지이나 내주 수지 차그래 레메다 제적 수지인데 수대 수지 말했어
less so.
What did 가서 레벨에 대유의 노안도 자온 것들에
Oh, good problem.
내가 봐주 수지 좀 어디서 나서 내가 봐주 수지 뭔지 수대 수지인데 내주 수지래서
So we find in Gunaprabha's text, Gunaprabha wrote the root Vinaya text, the root Vinaya text. And we find that he states that any among the individual ethics, individual liberation ethics, are necessarily ethics of renunciation. And this dispels the idea or negates the idea that any among them could be related to the ethics of out of fear, ethics out of reputation, or to look good. So this first category of ethics of renunciation is what Gunaprabha in the Vinaya Sutra states is the root Vinaya Sutra states is the all individual liberation ethics are renunciation ethics. In the Panchasan Andrapa, the Kele. Okay, going to some Kele. So when we look at here, Lama Tsong-kha-pa uses Atisha and Lord Atisha and Master Santipa's qualification for making someone a Buddhist. Someone becomes a Buddhist when the refuge arises within his or her continuum. But this is a very rare individual that has this real arisal of refuge. So in Panchen Son Andrapa's, the Parshin Chitan, so in the Panchen Son Andrapa's text on the Drutamawa, the tenet systems, and the Drutamawa and the great tenet systems book, we find that he states that someone is a Buddhist if he or she asserts that which the three jewels does. So it concurs with, asserts that which they assert. So this makes a much more broader basis for some Buddhists, people who are Buddhists, and gets out of and then steers away from some of the difficulties that would arise from only Buddhists are those beings who have the arisal of refuge, because this is such a rare type of being. It would disqualify so many others. So Panchen Son Andrapa says those who assert or agree with that which the three jewels presents. So it's very good, though, that Geshe Rinpoche quotes what Lord Atisha and Santipa state as refuge.
Sajin sever joas nibat marba honsabe honsa loji deba ngag deba sasha deba ngolo sajis ne sajin sever joas sever joa onko deba chano jen chung ro sajin sever joa angul mala na jin jide sever joa ne how do you so that le changer de marba changer de ko marba changer de how do you dans shunu ni na how do you go ne pagi ne haji shiro je ne ane pal je go mata pal je bade ane hatu so ne debil hatu so kausung bas hamat chegore dada chegore 마음을 가버지고 그 시고로다 시고에서 하고 신에 파발 제거 받에 그 하고 통고로다 하고 통 제대다 라이샤보 듄그린들 제대 본동에 용어서는 라이샤보 듄래 제대 본동에 용어도 라이샤보를 멀롱아주 말이야 라이 멀롱아주로 멀롱아주 샤부 듄가주 가지 저 듄까지 물로 손동 가자 말বে
손동 ngacha
준비 3500 years the Hako Cheputon the Gang Marbe. Well, Hagate Tom, and the Kurozuba Munaka, Yoganya, Munaja, and the Robert Chilmania, what the Jin, Moluson Tongajas, the Ganyo Gojo, what the Haji could Papa Jego Kronton Gojo. And the Jajin is in and not Papa Jego, not Robujo, Jajin Gita, Jonujes, Jonujena, Palchego Maris, Jajin could Jonujo.
Bless you.
Then the heart of Hal Majibaji, Haljanimula. And the sugar judging Tadula, part of Kabaji, Majajin 2 women. Matuna, Sonji, Judy, Garden Jesus.
Bless you.
What is she and what is that?
Okay.
What did you love?
The Tambo Kashe, the Dune, the Tambo the chair on the.
Goddess.
Oh, shit, man.
Loju,
the Loju Nala, the Tambo, the
Dola, that Mashu Dola Molungajul Dola Shabaji Marbe.
One day.
Shabajiro.
Melungapcha, Ngapchu, Shapuchi. 50 years, 1 year.
Ngaju Dul Kaziri.
350.
300. Malo 300 PT could Chibutun to Ganyu wood. Had to be Gangasra. To go Paljiba Hagur. To go Machibaje and the Rubu Dankangan. Robert the Chima. What the Chede Puganjilla. Uncle Jajin Shuba Jajin. I am Jajin. Who should have money?
The Jewishima Chu Papa.
That you what the Papa Jagadu, Kuntongoro. And then I wrote Jerujis, and you John to jail,
Bless you.
John to Jenan, you know what the Papa Chimar.
Bless you.
And Jajin called John to Jeju, what the Lojul Tetisha.
Okay, so we find in the story so let me read this first. You reduce and eliminate previously accumulated karmic obscurations. So reduce, we find when we apply the 4 opponent powers to our negativities, we're able to lessen them, make them smaller and smaller. And then it says eliminate. Eliminating previously accumulated karma would be like the example of Angumala, who was able to purify all of the misdeeds that he created. So here the difference between reduce and eliminate that's the difference. Previously accumulated obscurations. It says, in the section where it teaches that going for refuge clears away all sins, the Compendium of Trainings says. So Compendium of Trainings was written by Master Shantideva, who we find over here, again, also on the wall. I previously forgot to say that Gunaprabha is over here on the center pillar. So if you want to look at, after class or a break, Gunaprabha, Shantideva, Chandrakirti, Rinpoche pointed to all of them. So here, Master Shantideva wrote the 2 texts, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and then this text, the Compendium of Determinations. So here, this is from the Compendium of Determinations. It says, here you should take the edifying tale of a pig as an example. So here, one of the desire realm gods, they are able to see into their past, the present, and future. So they're able to see the 3 times. And this god was able to see that he was going to have to have a future lives of suffering, 350 years of suffering in the future. So he went to Indra because he realized that in his next life was going to be born as a pig. There might be 1 or 2 details in the beginning that are mixed up or omitted. But when he went to Indra because he recognized he was going to be born as a pig in his future life. And he went, and Indra said, I can't help you with that. You'll have to go for refuge to the 3 jewels. And he went for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And then when he died, Indra was not able to locate where he had been reborn. And Indra, the gods, are only able to see the realms that are below them. And because this god had been reborn in Tashita, Indra couldn't see him. So when asked where he was, found out it was Tashita, and the god could not see him because it was a higher realm than the god was abiding in. Chutsu jipa res.
Oh, nipa tengu.
So we'll take a short break. Okay? Decent.
Yeah.
Lo nyen yer.
Oya, ta nga su nipa tenba. Hwan sabi leji diba sa jin sebra jowa nesa. Ane la tu so, shanji dewa ka la tu so, ane jiao sun zhuyu diban dabar tenbi ka so, dere pa ki toba joba, pe sha wu xie song be sa. La tu so de la ji pa li jine, jide jine, jiao lu jine, pa li ma jobi lo ju de song gu res.
Lesso.
Shanji dewa ka song shas.
Lesso.
Pa tu jiwan ju, lai po, lai pu, jiao lu xie be, te ma jiba tabu des. Pa tu jiwan ju la de, ane ku jiao lu jine, pa li jia diba ta ma jiba yin jiro ta. Jiao lu xie be, ku jiao lu xie ne pa tu ma jiba karasana, jiao lu xie be, ngan lu yu ju tabi shiro sa jirma chi. Tang da ku ma de ba. Ku pa li jia re de, ku jiao lu xie ba yin zang, pa li ma jiba res. Ju sen karasana, pa li jia ke ngan lu ju tabi res. Jiao lu ta nu res. Ju tabi shiro sa. Kanda sanji jiao song wa, teta ngan lu zhu bin jiro, me yi lu ne, po ne, teta la yi lu tu bo, xie chu dang, gen dun la yang, teta song sa, kanda sanji jiao song wa, teta ngan lu zhu bin jiro, me yi lu ne, po ne, teta la yi lu tu. Kanda chu su jiao song wa, teta ngan lu zhu bin jiro, me yi lu ne, po ne, teta la yi lu tu bo. Kanda gani jiao song wa, teta ngan lu zhu bin jiro, me yi lu ne, po ne, teta la yi lu tu bo. Yen da ni la jia res. La yi lu tu bo xie, chu dang gen dun la yang,
Chipa.
teta song so, te na, hwan sa bi, deba taba ne saban jo la sa.
Lesso.
Hwan sa bi, hwan sa bi deba taba la la saban jo wa. La la saban jo, la la saban jo, deba ta se, deba kashi ma te kaso chuchung chan wu yi wa.
Lesso.
Kashi zao nin ta ne ya.
Lesso.
Ma zo tu lu tu man da bi.
Lesso.
Wa tu inche tu lu ji lu ji
Lesso.
song ren.
Okay, so then it says in the section where it teaches that going for refuge clears away sins or misdeeds, the Compendium of Trainings by Master Shantideva says, here you should take the edifying tale of the pig as an example. So here the story of the god who was going to be reborn as a pig, and then went for refuge and was able to be born in Tashita and avoid being born in the lower realms because of going for refuge. Thus, just as the god who was about to be reborn as a pig avoided such a birth by going for refuge, so too do you eliminate the conditions for rebirth in a miserable realm by going for refuge. Consequently, it is said, those who go for refuge to the Buddha do not go to the miserable realms. After giving up human form, they assume the bodies of the deities. So those who go for refuge do not go to the lower realms when they die in their human basis. They go to the higher realms. So it says the same applies to taking refuge in the teaching in the community. The same exact things. So those who go for refuge to the Buddha, those who go for refuge to the Dharma, those who go refuge to the Sangha, do not go to miserable realms. After having given up human form, they assume bodies of deities. So the same applies to the other jewels as well. And it says some previously accumulated sins are reduced, made less and less and less. Like washing the stain out of a cloth. It becomes less of a stain and less of a stain and less of a stain. And then some are cleared away or eliminated, as previously explained. So here we find this is a very powerful example of the God who was going to be reborn as a pig and was able to avoid that lower realm rebirth because of going for refuge. In our case, within our continuums, we have large amounts of misdeeds within our continuums and non-virtue that will give rise to the rebirth in the lower realms of hell, hungry ghosts, and animals. So we look at this advice and we should heed it because we have the components within our continuum to give rise to these negativities as well. So if we find in the case of the God going for refuge, he was able to purify the not be reborn in the as a pig, we can do the same.
And what the passing to a Johnson Sonazu, Thomson, the Dabres, what the Dabres won't do.
Lesso.
Sono Jachamo Suba and Hasheba Taros,
Lesso.
the Taji, Sombaji, Ta Jeba, Nandu Matoya, Nandu Matoya, Matoya and Hamishes was Nandu Matoya the Tanda, Hunsabi Diba Casa, Hai, Paljo and Nel Hade, John Jene. Halumutu Tandabres, Nanu Matuaya, Hamish Rosa.
Lesso.
Nepagi to Wajuba the Shigres.
Lesso.
Son Je Naredriba.
Lesso.
That Madame Mamma Ibi Bachi Masuba Neza. Madame Mamma Ibi Bachi, John Jena, Madame Mamma Ibi Bachi, I would need to.
Okay. The next, number 4, says you will accumulate vast merit. This has been explained previously. So previously in the section dealing with the benefits according to the Compendium of Determinations by a Sangha, we find you will obtain vast merit. And then we find 2 quotes, one from the tantric text, the immortal drumbeat Dharayana, where it says the Bhagavan Buddha is inconceivable, the sublime teaching is also inconceivable, the noble community is also inconceivable. For those having faith in the inconceivable, the fruition is also inconceivable. And then the Arya Shura's compendium of the perfections, we find if the merit for going for refuge took form, even these 3 realms would be too small to contain it. Handfuls of water cannot measure the great ocean, the storehouse of water. So here, that's what is meant by this has been explained previously. The next, you will not fall into the miserable realms. You should understand this from the earlier explanation, the explanation of the God who was going to be born as a pig who avoided that rebirth by going for refuge. In the Compendium of Trainings, here you should take the edifying tale of the pig as an example. So that is the point that's made in number 5. And number 6 is you will not be thwarted by humans or non-human hindrances. Lesso.
Pungadan Cheneche, Junjinala, Jondute, Jodu Mayishi, Jodu Chuju Mayila, Jodla Tene Jan, Dungaquile, Mandrishin, Kansakanji, Sanji Dan, Chuda Ganu, Josuan, and Dunga Kunju Dan. Dunga Tatan, Debatan, Dunga Tatan Debatan, Palan Yala Jeba Yala Jedawa, and then Yangan Deba Jua, Pabi Demba Jibuta, Shirojin Tasheba, Jod Zu Imbate, Jod Chudu Chubai, Jod Chudu Chubai, Jod Lane, Dene Jan. Dunga Gulu Jua and Jason Taros. Tamamu do the Dunda does it to Dua. Tama to Shina, she Jibatan, Nagi Jibatan, and then what Shinamo Bureau. Chi Dunga, Guy Dunga, Nai Dunga, Chi Dunga, the Sunga Shigoro, Maraba. ane shi ma dang, Chenrezig dang, do zhu dang, wa tenke de sur shinang yo ban ba. Ane kashi wa de shinang jiba de ka bi che to ril jiao sun zhu du, xin li jiao sun zhu du, nyama li jiao sun zhu du, wa de su pen tu ma res. Jiao de su ge jiao tu ma res ta. Ane sa ji gong ju, chu gong ju, ge niu gong ju sun jiao sun zhu ge na, ane jiao tu ge res.
Less so. So here it says in a sutra, people who are terrified mostly go for refuge to deities of the mountains, forests, temples, and the trees of sacred places. Such refuges are not the foremost, such refuges are not supreme. If you rely on such a refuge, you will not be freed from all suffering. When you go for refuge to the Buddha, the teaching, and the community, you will see with wisdom the Four Noble Truths. Suffering, the origin of suffering, correctly overcoming suffering, the happy eightfold path, noble path leading to nirvana. This is the foremost refuge. This is the supreme refuge. If you rely on such a refuge, you will be free from all suffering. So here, there's many words, but the pith of the meaning here is that we have many different types of fears, internal and external fears. Fears of the external and fears of the internal, rather. We have fears of the suffering of birth, suffering of aging, the suffering of sickness, the suffering of death, fears of wars or spirits or neju, donaga sena, the madang, denju, the
mata mama imbe bachi jima subas ta mei jiba karyo mei madang dodang ane mei jeda no ba je mo bi ma shino yodro de su yidro ane to ju dan to so ge su dan to yung gore samba o tenege good job.
So here we have many fears, internal fears of the internal, fears of the external, birth, aging, sickness, and death, fears of war, fears of spirits, fears of others harming us in some way. So there are many different types of fears, and normally, or ordinary people sometimes go for refuge because of their fear in things like the trees or temples, forests, mountains, and so forth. But these aren't suitable bases of refuge. Only the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, are the suitable basis for refuge, because from them we are able to be truly freed from what we fear. Freed from what we fear. So this is the point of this here.
What the days were? Taka conscious on the Jason Rogina, and then conscious on the Jason Rogina, and then do a puppy tempo. Then Kunyu puppy tempo, then Gopa puppy tempo, then the Lama puppy tempo. What does go younger shade Marba? Conscious on the Jason Rogina, and then doing about the Kunyu devil maybe Nanu somebody of Yungre. Teshona, and then doing the Bombay, doing Jodan Java Bombay, more than Godan Yungre, T. Joe. And then London Yungres, what does Penshade Marba?
So here we see there's a presentation of the Four Noble Truths within this too. The Buddha stated that this is the superior truth of suffering, this is the superior truth of origin, this is the superior truth of cessation, this is the superior truth of path. So once one recognizes suffering and the origin of suffering, one generates a desire to definitely emerge from those, desire to emerge from suffering itself, and then abandon that which causes suffering, which is referring to the origin of suffering. Through abandoning the origin of suffering, one is able to achieve the cessation of suffering. And one abandons it by engaging in a pathway which causes that cessation to take place. That's a tricky word to use in that case, I know, because it's cessation is permanent. Translator's note. I'm using this word caused in the way that it makes it happen, inferring that within the word cause, and not using it in the cause and effect way. So it is brought about by the truth of path. Cessation is brought about by the truth of path. So this is the Four Noble Truths were represented in here, so Rinpoche felt it necessary to give a slight explanation of them, he said.
Demati Lonja Jubala Subi Tang Pusha Wosa, what the Shiribi Jere. That Jesamba Tanji Juba Margata, what the Gazette.
Dumba.
Dumba
Lesso.
Dumba Jituba Jiba. What Jesamba Tanji, that conjures on the Jason Dolina, Susu Debakare, Samba Tanji Kalen doing what is. Drubane Jonden Chuden Jishawa, Khan Drubi, Chuden Jishawa, Khan Drubi, Tomar, Control Chujins, that Chudan Debishawa, Chujia Shaka Drubaina, Tomar, Control Chujin, Control Chuji, Jos Sone, and then Ruber Suata Nasa, Ruber, Tanda Ruba, the Control Suata Baina. Delato Yongres, Delato, Ruba was going to Suata Navade, Shilata Mayu never Yedra. She read the shin to the Suata and she read the shin to the Nevayo Marwa. Just on Gobandutu. Conscious on the Johnson Dubai in a conch, with the San Machaba in Rosam Casasusu in the Bandua there, Mayu never Yedra. Johnson and Ruba Suata na Delato, Ruba was. What that day, Trubat River, Trubat J.
Dumba.
Dumba de wood Marva.
Shanchu Jubal on the Jepa.
Near to Sanjawa, the Dumba Marva. Near to Sanjawa Dumba, near to Sanjawa, Sengishu Valley. Tebe Macon, what an adult tannery.
Jeba Tamu Abacha, Nipa, Dumba, Sumba.
Nangala, you say you about that in the machine. Then you said Chinsaro.
Lesser.
That Nangala, you are a jile, number Sanjiba Tuba, Tambaji,
Lesser.
Doma Tanji to Joa, Niba J. Sabi Leji Diba na Sabjin Seban Joa,
Lesso,
so now Jacham Suba, Nano Masuma, Madame Mama Emi Baji Masuba, Chesamban Druba, near to Sanjo, Chesamban Druba Dubarendo, near to Sanjawa, Jibarem.
Lesso.
Yeah.
So then it says, J. Rinpoche says, here you use as examples the stories of the non-Buddhist who mastered the magic rope and so forth. So the Tirtaka, who mastered the magic rope, or it's sometimes called the energy noose out of energy wind, or an energy noose, a magic rope. So here, this story, there's stories related to that. So there are many stories or previous stories that relate to this point being made. Then you will accomplish everything you wish. This is number 7. So whatever you desire, you will be able to achieve it. If before undertaking a religious activity you make offerings to the 3 jewels, go for refuge, and then pray to succeed, you will easily accomplish it. So if one makes these prayers and aspirations and goes for refuge to trees and mountains, one won't be able to achieve what one wishes to achieve in religious aspects, the different religious goals that one would have. So it shows how the basis of the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, become the best basis to go for refuge to, pray to, and make offerings to. And by doing so, one will accomplish whatever one wants, whatever one desires. And then number 8, you will quickly achieve Buddhahood. And then there's a quote from a sutra by a lion, but we didn't get to that yet. So that's where we leave off, and that's number 8. So if we look at the outline, it's the root or the outline of this, it's very clear. If we look at the enumeration from its outline perspective, it's very clear from the perspective of outline. Less so.
Teba yoba teba tege ne makumba pondo res makumba je makumba anju sheson batar Dewa cheba jen nye jin, dewa cheba jen nye jin, dayu ten yin jirwa. Nye jin, jiao dang je nes, sanji gong ju, gong ju dan je ne, lang cheba jen la, hu la sa. Gong ju song la jiao sun zhuo, gong ju song, sanji song bi lang cheba jen la, lo zhong cheba yin na, lang cheba jen la, hu la. De ne renpa mutu ba, Tsang jiao wu sa, gong ju song la jiao sun zhuo gong ne, lang cheba jen, cheba chung gong zhe da chu ju, jiao song da cheba sha, wa de lang tu su lu zhong abu je ge yin na, ju bu tsang jiao na ge res, wa tu song da yin sa ma re ba.
So the next is you will quickly achieve Buddhahood. So it says the sutra requested by a lion. It says, though through faith you overcome a lack of leisure. So you, through going for refuge, you are able to overcome the 8 leisureless states, or the 8 states that lack leisure. So thus, one who obtains a special kind of leisure, or a daiden, a basis of leisure, encounters the refuge and trains in the special path, will achieve Buddhahood without delay. So if one goes for refuge, it says, if you have this basis of leisure, and then you go for refuge, then you can engage in the pathways which lead to complete Buddhahood, and we'll get there very quickly. And those pathways are those presented in the beginning of Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment. Understand that there are persons of 3 capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly identifying their characteristics. I shall define them clearly. So one will be able to quickly achieve the state of Buddhahood by relying on those pathways, if one has this basis of going for refuge. Tiksun.
That is what.
Nima Dakpa. Natsu Kabiyare.
Nidu Sangjawa, Sangye Shubale, Tebe Mukhopon, She Somba Tare, Kawachabajan, Tenjin, Jiao Jene, Lanchabajan, Lula, Tenerebo Mutuba, Sangjawa, Sanjin Negres, Teta Pena, Templashine, Pena Templashine, Nimara Regine, Yin Lanson, San Lanson to Josun Rocha.
That's so. Okay, so it says, thus one who obtains a special kind of leisure, obtains the refuge and trains in the special path will achieve Buddhahood without delay. Each day recall the benefits in the above manner, then go for refuge 3 times during the day and 3 times at night. Then the Tsong-kha-pa, then a drupa gutsogudu.
Drupa terwa, drupa terwa. Kanju sung tana yengi ji shirang.
Lesso.
Sugi shiyang matangshin.
Lesso.
Sungwa shawanes.
Lesso.
Le dan su dan longshe ne de mazawa dewan julas. Ane susu le dan longshe ge tenda le ne wadi santan pentu mare konga ne gra matabares. Teda ge le dan longshe ge chedo ane kanju sung tana ne kanju sung le dan ba ina sara tanje do dengan jungres dengan jumar jung sherosa chela bojang zange ge lekha gane jil thuba ina ya chandu taju ba chandu matango ya ne matango nya do ya ya shedan sha jis tu na ngal lekha dobu jung ba ina ra yabu jung ba ina ka du ina Conchu Tang Many Senle Sanum Tang Waters. What is a marbe?
So we just went over. So if we're looking at it in terms of the 6 general precepts, that section is after you have understood the benefits, go for refuge 3 times in the day and 3 times at night. So that what we just went over is included among that section. So then the next section, which is number 6, it says, maintain your refuge and do not forsake the 3 jewels, even in jest or if it costs your life. So just backtracking for 1 second, I apologize. Under that section, after you have understood the benefits, so we went over the 2 categories, according to the Compendium of Determinations and according to the oral tradition. So we find those benefits in that section, and that section is number 5. We move on to section number 6. Maintain your refuge and do not forsake the 3 jewels, even in jest or if it costs your life. So whatever work you're doing, continuously take refuge and don't lose it. Don't always hold on to one's refuge, even if it says do not give it up, even if it is at the cost of your life. So whatever work you're doing, whatever you're engaging in, whether things are good or whether things are bad, one should always have this refuge, not forsake it. Inevitably, you will lose your body, life, and resources. So your body, all these things that we have are impermanent. So they're not very significant when we look at them in a whole terms, or in a bigger. I don't want to use the word big picture, but if we look at them in the scheme, I don't want to use scheme of things either, but if we look at them in reality, we are going to lose them. They're impermanent. So our body, life, and resources will all be gone. But if you forsake the 3 jewels for the sake of these, you will suffer continually through many lives. So if we look at in terms of multiple lifetimes, the suffering that we will endure will be much, much greater than this one life. Thus, you should repeatedly vow that whatever happens, you will not forsake your refuge, not even mouthing the words in jest.
Tene gaza teetara penshine sharla ni lesson ta 10 lesson to josun ro shawus what ngaba drem ngaba.
Okay, so each day recall the benefits in the above manner, then go for refuge 3 times during the day and 3 times at night. That's number 5. Then we begin number 6.
Penshine ni lesson 10 lesson to josun ro what drem
Being Abbot.
That robot shows on the shower Kanshebana. Go back to you, but the Conjuson the Chune, so one day, Mare wasn't that truth. How the Truba Truba
Sugi Shayami.
Conjuson Tana, Sugi Shayan, Sharan, Sugi Shayan, Matanshi, Son Shawosa. Conjuson Tana. Jengi Jisharan, Sukisham, Bonjos. Tapet Sul Tubaina, Sul Tubaina, and what they can go to Tangamenabi, Salu Tem Gugres, and Nazuk Namal Hazale, Jagatazi Momatanota, Subukishi Kebaju, Subukishi, Goma, with the Geshe Lharampa Angatambure, and the Konshidagabe sent Tibetan Buddhism. That never the Lamrim Chenrezig, Junju
Junju, Sena?
Very bad thought.
Oh.
Chan, many people inside. And you this.
The Mongolian Geshe?
Not Mongol Geshe, yes.
Called the Ling Dang Trijang Yabu.
Yabuyama love this.
Okay.
Jailor, Ja.
Oh.
Chana.
Ale.
Then the trouble the Mamboking at that time. And Pishi Chun Lamas and what? Can't see Lamas. Natatan Pishi Sevi.
Then the Garsh de Jawagare Chishinenge
Tamad Dabado Tamada. Conju son, Yenge Sharansa. Sugi She on Matanji, Son Shavas. Conju son. Taku was the Lama Junju at Sul Tuba Ina, Jogama, near of the Junjis, Chewoma. Neta on that Junju, see that Junju.
Oh, Seison.
Seison.
Oh, I see. Then Su Seison?
Subu Genshi, Genshi, Goma, Subu Gishi. And go Juba Laman, Juba no Lama Juravaina. I know what the Jagal has do with on the Cotanese. And that don't say.
The Subu Geshe Shison? Subu Geshe
Subu
Jijang Yapi Subu Geshe say Konso Seisai. Okay, so we find there's a story. If this isn't clear, I apologize. So there was previously in Tibet a Mongolian Geshe who was a great scholar, Geshe Lharampa #1, and had a great amount of faith. And we see that he gave a talk to a Chinese community and disparaged, said bad things about Ling Rinpoche and Trijung Rinpoche, and his life was ended very shortly after that. He was killed, or he was killed shortly thereafter that. So we find Rinpoche's relating it to this not forsaking your refuge. So I asked what the connection was, and that it was to that. So if I made a mistake in there, I apologize if it's not connecting clearly. So you shouldn't say these bad things. You should refrain from saying these bad things. Inevitably, so here under this, maintain your refuge and do not forsake the three jewels, even in jest or if it costs your life. Inevitably, you will lose your body, life, and resources. But if you forsake the three jewels for the sake of these, you will continually suffer continually throughout many lives. So for the sake of one's body, life, or resources, he or she forsakes the three jewels, or says bad things about the three jewels in order for the sake of one's body and life and resources. It doesn't make sense, because the body and life and resources won't be of any benefit to one in one's future life. And by disparaging the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, or forsaking the three jewels, one will in future lives suffer repeatedly and continuously. So it shows the necessity of not forsaking the three jewels and why. So then it says, thus you should repeatedly vow that whatever happens, you will not forsake your refuge, not even mouthing the words in jest. So if a group of people are around and they're making jokes about forsaking the three jewels, one shouldn't engage in it, not even joking around. One should not even joke around about forsaking the three jewels. So in Jayan Sheba's text, where we find the enumeration of benefits and then dispelling misconceptions, we've gone through the enumeration of benefits section, and then now we're getting into the dispelling misconceptions section. Ngay the Jayan Sheba becha gu, kabija gu, shera gu.
Yeah.
Ewa pentodu, chishina.
Shungayang Sajinto, Shungayang, Tijin Shebala, Josun Joala, Sajibi, Sajashi, Gomana Sonte, Komatons, what the gown with Germany. And the Pesagenda, Keba in Jerry, and then Johnny Laja de Shukabal Chimaina, shoot take it to Shebala, Shats have Wures. Is rent is Charlo Kabachimana shoot take digital to shots. Tell shots have words. Lamas of Sungus, General Laja so do the German common do Jevata
Cabiare.
Command Cabayer Mendoza, Gajan Mudu, Tenus, things will take them to Yajibo the cover.
So here, this is the first section, the dispelling misconceptions. So let me read it first. Former teachers have said that there is a precept that you should practice going for refuge to the Tathagata of whichever direction you are going in. I have not seen a source for this. So Lama Tsong-kha-pa is stating, in Tibet, Rinpoche said there's many scholars who have written into the precepts of refuge this part that says whatever direction you're going in, if you're going north, south, east, or west, you pray to the Buddha of that specific direction that you're going in. And Lama Tsong-kha-pa says, where is the source for this? It's not in the Kanjur, it's not in the Tanjur, so he's negating this idea. So this is the first negation that's found according to the Jayan Sheba text. The shit is so blue.
What the James in the Kagadu.
Doa Kagi. Tome Doa, the Doa Zotsawa.
Don't say your Doa, don't show good and not do Genramajik, show Jayo.
Vinaya. Okay.
Jayo. What the better talking to Doa don't look at. Kaji don't do you. The Zuna, then on Doa to another do. What the Doa don't say, Doan Tayun, the Kagadu.
So we also find a similar idea in the Vinaya texts. And Rinpoche said there are many different volumes of Vinaya texts, and we find also this negation made in there as well.
도주 콩 계주스 콩 안에 콩 토몽글하자 조 말바 토몽글하자 조데 소송도스 토몽글하자 조데 다지는 버지는데 라는 제발 송샤스 라는 아티샤 램파 아티샤 램파 라레요로 아티샤 램파 사와주 안에 자갈체 기샤레나 안에 주 라는 라레지 and London Rande Trina and Burns Jagal Tano. What the London Japan London Japan those ones Germany.
So here it says, where does this come from? So then the question arises. It says, I have presented the 6 general precepts in accordance with how they appear in Atisha's commentary on the difficult points of the lamp for the path to enlightenment. This is his own commentary and auto commentary that was written at the request of Indian practitioners. When he was in Tibet, he wrote the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, and Indian practitioners asked for a commentary on it. So then Atisha wrote this commentary and sent it to India from Tibet. So that's the story of this, the background on that particular commentary.
Ta tumu laja dela gabi laja sung drubi laja sung yo marbe. Tumu laja la gabi laja sung drubi laja sung ane nyande dole kanji sung la chao sung la tenne hane jenda la chao sung ha ma yino. Tambi chula chendo wa ne kasa chu kasa sentient tsawa she chu ma.
Sentient.
Denu la chao sung wa Matiba the Buddhist. What the Tomo has a soon to Marva.
That's so.
That Drubi Laja soon there, and then Sanji Kuzu, Remetiba, and she's Sanji Dushisha was tender Tomo Laja.
Less so.
Soon Gabi Laja, Drubi Laja, Druyorova.
Less so.
Gabi Laja there, the Tomo Laja to the London, Jabal and Juashi in Las, Susu Laja Tan, Susu Laja Tamoson there, do de le xie jin su su la ja son de gabi la ja son de marbe
The Tumon.
su su la ja tam son de marbe
The Tumon Mayimbi Lasha.
tam son ta gabi la ja son
Oh, Gabi. Okay, Drupi
gabi la ja
Gaba. Okay.
son gabi la ja son de ane do de le xie jin shema son ne sa drubi la ja son de marbe
Less so.
drubi la ja son de jiangzhou Chandru la Juba Lenjon de Chandru la Juba Pacha Juji, what the Tenjun machine is it. Pacha Ten la Juba Lenjon de Cheki Dosa Cheki doing zero tata. Kuzu says Jebatan,
Less so.
Kuzu says Jebatan, Hamba Sabatabatan, Kuzu says Jebatan, Hamba Sabatabatan, Teme Gune. Temba ta, temegun temba ta, shene songba tada la, koba mada chulang, kanza tada mada la, ane tamba tawa shawa yin, she so sa. She so tawa de yin shi ji lu da, ju yin shi tu ji lu ne.
So then, let's see. I have presented the 6 general precepts. So we previously went over the general precepts, the specific precepts, and the general precepts. And it says the general precepts in accordance of how they appear in Atisha's commentary on the difficult points of the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. The first 3 of the special precepts are explained in the sutras. The other 3 in Vimala Mitra's 6 aspects of going for refuge. So the special precepts we found we have advices of things to do and things not to do. So things not to do, we found 3 points that were made. One should not go for refuge to other deities. One should establish sentient beings in compassion, and by not harboring any harmful thoughts, refraining from injury to other living beings, etc. And then the third thing to abandon related to the special precepts or is to not associate with non-Buddhists, or not and then swayed or by non-Buddhist or associate with non-Buddhist. So these are the things to abandon. Those things to do, we find 3. First is to respect every image of the conqueror, the teacher, no matter what it's made of. We found the quote from Nagarjuna. And then the second precept of what to do is to respect the writings and the teachings, even those with as little as 4 words. And then the third is to not revile or despise members of the spiritual community, those aspiring to virtue, or of the Sangha. literally it says community, a community of religious practitioners. So then those are the special precepts, and then the general precept section is the one that we went over. So the general precept section we find in Atisha's commentary on the difficult points of the lamp, and then the first 3 points that are put in the special precept section are explained in sutras, and the other 3 in Vimalamitre's 6 aspects of going for refuge. And then it says, this is a quote from Vimalamitre's 6 aspects of going for refuge. It says, an image, verse, or discarded scrap of yellow cloth, out of faith and belief, consider to be the teacher. Do not mistakenly deny anything he said, rather place it on the crown of your head. View pure and impure persons as though they were noble. This is where we find that second set of viewing all images of the Buddha the same, respecting even 4 words of Dharma, or the Dharma, written Dharma, and then respecting those the community. And it says in here, just as a note, those with a vow or without a vow. I believe it says those with a vow or without a vow. So the community of practitioners. So we went over those within that section of the advices where there are the 8 benefits in this general precept section of this section that we're in. We found those 8 benefits. So the enumeration of the 8 we've gone over according to the Jamyang Sheba text, and then the next section will deal with the Nipa. Okay. So then now we have to go over the negation section. So we've gone over the 8. Now we go over the negation section. So maybe we have 3 minutes. So if anybody has questions, no, maybe not. True, it looks like we're out of time, man. So we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. To Chenrezig Rinpoche Lobsang. May the giant Sheba Gudu dictionary, Pentolu. So the fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular, essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Abliteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche Gutsi Shabi Denrolang.